fear is the oldest part of the conscious brain. It's like the first,
reptilian
it's
brain.
the reptilian brain, right? It's almost like a toggle. It doesn't have any subtlety. It doesn't have any creativity. The only thing it knows is to tell you to stop. And it will always tell you to stop when you're about to do something where fear itself does not know what the outcome is going to be. So fear, looking at you about to embark on something, doesn't know what the outcome is going to be. Just to be safe, it's like, shut it down.
Sure.
Shut it down.
Why take that risk?
Fear's thinking, if it can be said to think, is, I don't know what this is. I've never seen this before. I don't know how this ends. Therefore, no.
Yeah.
Because this is probably going to end in my death. Which is why when you sit down to do something like write a poem, it feels like you might die.
Yeah.
Like, it's so weirdly frightening because your fear actually thinks you will. And my experience of fighting it is that the more you fight it, the more it asserts itself. Because the more you fight it, the more it's like, oh, now things are really serious. There's a panic of, no, shut the whole thing, and it's on lockdown.
Well, it has race fuel. So the more it fights, the more your adrenal glands dump, your cortisol, and it's got high octane shit. And your frontal, the other part of your brain having that conversation with itself, doesn't have high octane fuel.
No, it's also new. It's also only 100,000 years old, and the fear is a lot older than that. Like, the new creative consciousness is like this brand new operating system. Fear has no idea what it is. They don't really know how to talk to each other a lot.
Right.
And so my tactic has been to learn how to talk to fear in a really loving way and to be really kind to it. And so it's very different from what I think we're taught in this culture, which is like, get up every day, kick fear in the ass, show it who's boss, punch it in the face. Which doesn't
no
work.
Fear.
Doesn't work for me. It just, all it does is make me more scared. So for me, it's just this very gentle, very loving, very motherly voice that's like, oh my God, sweetheart, I can see that you're really super freaked out right now, and you are totally allowed to stay in the room. I don't send it into exile.
Right.
You're totally allowed to be here with me, and I'm going to be here. And, me and your sister Creativity are going for a road trip. You're welcome to come. We've got a car seat for you in the back. We love you. You're part of the family. Get in the car. You're not allowed to drive, and you're not allowed to navigate. You're not allowed to pick the snacks, and you're not allowed to suggest detours, but you can be in the car. And then fear's job is to sit in the backseat of the car screaming in terror the entire time. And I'm just like, it's all right, honey. We're going, we're doing this anyway.
Right.
So there's an inclusion of it that rather than an exiling.
You went on a speaking tour that Oprah hosted. And there were 20,000 folks in attendance, right? Mm-hmm. If you're a human being, you had to have had anxiety and fear about the very initial step out onto the stage.
Yeah.
So what did fear say to Elizabeth? What did Elizabeth say to fear?
That one was interesting. Fear took me over in a physiological way at that point. And I'm pretty comfortable public speaking at this point. I mean, I've done TED Talks, but I've never certainly done a stadium tour where Oprah's sitting in the front row watching you. And she's just said, I'm giving you exactly 50 minutes to inspire 20,000 people.
Yeah,
go.
good luck, kid.
Don't let them down.
Yeah.
Don't let me down. I remember being backstage the first day, and I'd never had this experience before, but you've maybe had this stage fright. My knees were quite literally knocking.
Right, from adrenaline.
Yeah, I could feel my bones hitting each other.
Yeah.
And my hands were shaking. There was no way to hide it. And it wasn't even a thought. It was just a complete physiological response. Anybody who has stage fright is probably listening to this with their palms sweating right now.
Yeah.
But what happened was some other part of me kicked in, and this is exactly how the conversation went. I said to myself, there are times in your life, Liz, where the greatest gift that you could ever give to women, because it is 95% women in this audience, the greatest gift that you could ever give to women is to show them your human vulnerability and let them see that you're exactly like them in your anxiety and in your insecurity. And today is not that day, motherfucker. Today is not that day, because these women already know how to be afraid. They already know how to be insecure. They already know how to diminish themselves. Your job today, and the most generous gift that you could possibly give to these women, is to model for them what it looks like when a woman stands in her own self-confidence and her own power. So why don't you show them what that looks like? The way I sort of twisted it in my head was, I have an offering that I want to make out of love. And so the love that I felt for the women in that audience, and for me wanting them to be able to see what it looks like for a woman to be relaxed, because so few women are relaxed, overcame the fear. So it was, again, love over fear. But it was love for them over fear for myself.
So I love it. But I'm going to be an advocate for 2 seconds.
Yeah, go ahead.
Devil's advocate. I remember, poor Monica will never be able to track this down, but I either read or heard that some result of self-help books, it doesn't help people in that they are introduced to a model that is kind of unattainable. And they dedicate all this time to it. And they now have, quote, the tools, and yet they can't implement them. So now they feel even more like a failure because they were just given the tools and they can't implement them.
Right.
So I'm curious. I could see where you'd go, well, you stepped out on stage and you just showed these women something that really is almost impossible. Could that have the effect of like, oh, here's one more thing I couldn't do, as opposed to if you came out and you go, my knees are knocking, I think I'm going to pass out,
right?
But I'm going to go anyways because I love you guys and I want to do this.
Right.
Is that more relatable? I mean, I love what you're saying. I'm just working it all through in my head.
You might be absolutely right about that.
I don't know. I'm just wondering.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I have a question for you. Have you ever been helped by a self-help book?
Well, AA, if you call AA in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, self-help book, which I think it is, yes, incredibly. But I don't know that the book on its own, in fact, I'm almost certain the book on its own wouldn't have helped me.
Right.
It was the community and watching how this dude